attentive and on time. My name is Blake Adams. My role in DPW is I'm the manager of the Office of Waste Diversion. You can sort of think of us as an environmental unit within DPW, trying to help the agency become a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more environmentally friendly. We're not going to talk about waste or recycling today. We're going to be talking about our salt reduction pilot, what it means, what your roles are, and what to be expected of y'all on a given day when we've got some weather coming in, and we're gonna go out and pre-treat. Okay. Again, my name is Blake Adams. I appreciate you guys being here. So this is going to be a fairly quick training this morning, and then we're going to take it outside, and we're actually going to get watch some equipment and learn how to use some different things. But this is going to be fairly quick this morning. So today's so first, I'd like to just do a real quick round of introductions, just to make sure we know who's here today, what your roles are, and so I think I've introduced myself. Bill, do you want to?
Yeah. Good morning again, everybody. I know a lot of you. My name is Bill Easley. I also work in the Office of Waste Diversion with Blake. And mainly the same goals Blake has are my goals.
Okay. I'm Mary Alice Hamnet. I think I've met a few of you through snow trainings or leaf trainings. I'm the Training and Development Manager here at DPW, fairly new. I started back in April. It's nice to see your faces. This is my colleague, Peter Hillman.
Good morning, everybody. Peter Hillman, Training Coordinator. Been with DPW now for about 3 weeks, so extremely new, but glad to be here.
So again, we just did introductions. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what this means. What is the salt reduction pilot? What are we talking about? We're going to go through that. We're going to talk about why it's important, the difference between the two main materials that we're going to be testing. CMA, which stands for calcium magnesium acetate. Think of it as like a different form of rock salt. So we're going to be testing that side to side next to rock salt and see how it performs. I'll get into more about that. We're going to talk about what to expect on the day of, your roles, responsibilities, everyone here's roles, responsibilities, and then we're going to go outside. After we do a quick interactive coordination exercise, we're going to do another exercise outside, as I mentioned. And then at the end, we're going to leave time for Q&A for you all to ask as many questions as you want, so you can all feel comfortable leaving here today, understanding what's being asked of you all. Learning objectives today are for everybody to understand your role. That's the most important thing. Also to be familiar with what's going to be expected of you, different activities that you're going to be doing. Understanding the routes that are affected, so which routes that we're going to be running this pilot on, which routes that you're going to be actually operating on, that sort of thing. We're going to learn how to use the weighing devices. MPD or police department, they're here. They have certain equipment that's going to allow us to weigh vehicles. We're going to go out and get a tutorial from them in a few. And then we're going to make sure that we have anything that you all need to know, any questions that you have are fully answered, okay? Is that understood?
Yes.
Okay. Pretty straightforward, I think. So what is the salt reduction pilot? Well, DC is required by the US EPA to try to reduce as much salt that we're putting out on the streets, which eventually gets washed downstream and gets into the local environment. It gets in our rivers, it corrodes vehicles and equipment and roadways. It's essentially quite harmful to the environment. And so the whole region in DC, Maryland, Virginia is actively trying to reduce how much salt they put down on the road during the winter, during snow and ice events. So in order to do this, what we decided to do as a city is test 3 different pre-treatment options, side by side on 6 routes. So we have 3 treatment options, 6 routes, so that means that we're going to be testing each material on 2 routes. And we'll go through exactly which routes those are in a second. But again, the 3 pre-treatment options are traditional rock salt. We typically would put down basically the normal material. Calcium magnesium acetate, which I'll show you what that looks like in a second. It's has the same sort of performance qualities of rock salt. It looks a little bit different, performs a little bit differently. We'll get into that, but it's more environmentally friendly. It's a traditionally it's a more expensive material, but they use it on airports because it has a high performance value in low temperatures, and it's more environmentally friendly. So we'll talk about that. And then the last is pre-wetted salt with saddle tins. So those are the three treatment options that we're going to be testing on 6 routes. The only one that's new to DPW operations is the calcium magnesium acetate. Somebody's printing off one. A vendor has been hired, Tetra Tech, through the Department of Energy and Environment. They're going to go out and take a look at before and after to assess how well these materials are performing. So all we're asking you all to do is essentially show up, know where to be, understand the material that you're loading in your vehicle, how to check in, check out, apply the material, and that's it. So hopefully we're not asking too much different. Again, the only real difference is this new material that we're going to be talking about in a second. As I mentioned, we have 6 routes. We have 3 different material types. So that means that there are 2 zones and 2 routes where we're going to be putting down each material. So there'll be 2 snow routes with rock salt, 2 for CMA, and 2 for the pre-wetted salt with the saddle tanks. And the goal here is to test these materials for 3 to 5 snow events this snow season. Now, the weather's not been all that conducive over the last couple of years. If we run this pilot twice this year, that would be a huge success. And we'll talk a little bit about when we'll be running this pilot. So as I mentioned, this is calcium magnesium acetate. Now obviously you can tell like the big difference is these are more like spherical pellets. And when you apply them, they sort of bounce a little bit on the pavement. But they perform just as well as rock salt, which is more of a crystalline, kind of flaky material, right? So again, this is really the kind of the main point of this pilot is to see how well this CMA does compared to rock salt.
I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Has that been tested? The
Yes.
CMA?
Yes.
They have been tested, so y'all actually know how good it already does.
We did run this pilot last year for one event. Some of y'all might remember that. If you were involved, thank you again for that. But this is a material that is used by different cities, different airports, as I mentioned. It has a high performance value. It's very expensive
Oh, that's the
compared to rock salt. And so that's what we're trying to determine is are the environmental benefits
That's
worth.
why I was about to ask you, because if that's safer for the environment, why don't we just go ahead, just cancel that out and just use that, but you said it's more expensive.
Yes, sir. It's a great question. So we're in the process of, through this pilot, determining whether we're going to go this route or not as a city. So I want to talk a little bit about the driver process now. So I think for the most part, this process is not that different than what you'd be typically expected to do. If we get the weather forecast comes in, we're gonna get snow, ice, maybe some slush, whatever it is, right? Y'all will typically get a notification telling you that you have to report to a certain location at a certain time, correct?
Yeah.
How does that typically work for y'all? Do you get an email? Do you get a phone call?
9 times out of 10, supervisors get the emails and the employees, supervisors call them.
Gotcha. Okay, so typically you would be, as drivers, y'all would be notified by a supervisor, either by
Yes,
phone
most
or
times, yes.
email. Okay. So, in this pilot, that won't change. The only thing that will change is what your supervisor will be telling you. they'll likely be telling you something slightly different, because we're not gonna be running this pilot every single winter event, okay? So there'll only be certain times that we run this pilot, because as we mentioned, this material is expensive and we only have so much of it. So that's why we're not doing this every single time we go out to pre-treat. We're only doing this in small select areas in the city at certain times. And typically we're looking at weather events that are like, you know, a dusting, a coating to like a couple inches, because that gives us the ability to see how it performs visually. So you would receive an activation notification with instructions for the pilot implementation. So you'll be receiving an email or a phone call with specific directions on where to be, what equipment to use, to where to load up from, all of that. That'll be specific to that day and that event. So you don't have to worry about anything other than just being in touch with your supervisor, who will let you know everything that you need to know. And then you all would report for activation, wherever that may be. That may be, if you're on rock salt, that may be at South Capitol. You might be loading up from over there. You may need to get your vehicle from another location and bring it to another location, get it loaded up. That's all to be determined and kind of what your supervisor will tell you. But ultimately, you will all report here to W Street before we go out and run the pilot. And you'll understand when we go out and we do the next portion of the training why that is. So this is kind of like ground zero for our operations. But it's important to remember, you're not coming here first. There likely will be another step. You might have to go and fill up your truck with brine. You might need to go fill up your truck with salt at another location. Even though we have a salt dome here, this may not be where you're directed to load up from, okay? You'll prep your vehicle for deployment as you typically would. You would stage at the salt dome ready for material, if that's here, if that's South Cap, if that's somewhere else, that's what you would do. And then you would arrive here, and we're talking about the vehicle being weighed. We're going to go outside and we're going to do a tutorial in a little bit with MPD, who have portable scales to weigh your vehicle before and after. That should be interesting to find out how that works. I am not Wilson Reynolds. I am Blake Adams.
But it's in the new sheet
Yeah.
training.
Yeah,
Blake
it's okay.
Adams in the sheet now.
So once you guys arrive here with your vehicle, it's loaded up. We're gonna weigh the vehicle, and then we're gonna send you guys on your way. All right. But it's important that there's a constant flow of communication. So I will be here on the day of, so you all can get to know me, know my face. I will be out here, rain, shine, sleet, snow, whatever, with you guys, walking you through the process and writing down lots of information. Vehicle weights, the time of the day, all of that stuff. So it's important that we just have good communication and that we're in constant, contact.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
question. So these drivers that are here today, these will be the drivers actually doing the pilot program?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when you all tell us on this snow event tomorrow, you all will be doing the pilot program, they will be here at W Street, back there at the Salt Dome?
Not
Oh,
Not specifically. So
Oh, okay.
eventually, yes, everybody will come here before you touch your routes. But there may be, depending on which salt dome is open or depending on what piece of equipment you're told to use, that may require you to go report to another location to get your vehicle to load up your material and then report here. But the drivers that are going to be using the calcium magnesium acetate, they will report here and
That's what I'm
load up
talking
from
about,
here.
that, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So we'll go through that in a second. It's a good question. So again, the vehicle is weighed. We'll write down your vehicle weight before you go out, so we understand how much is in your vehicle. And then you'll drive to the starting point in the route. once you're at the starting point of the route, you'll record your vehicle odometer and start time, and then you'll call me, again, I'm not Wilson Reynolds, but you'll call me and my contacts in here, with that information. So, hi Blake, I'm at the starting location, my odometer reads 12,000 miles, whatever, and it's 9 a.m. Okay, and then I always say, go ahead, treat the route. And then that's it. So that's really all that we're asking in terms of communication once you get on the route. And then again, at the end of the route, stop what you're doing. Again, pick up the phone, call me, say, hey, I finished my route. There's 12,015 miles on my odometer. All right, so you traveled 15 miles, and my end time is 9:45 a.m. Okay, that's very important information. So a lot of this is just about collecting information and data so we know what's been put down and how well it's performing. And then lastly, you would return back here to W Street, and we will weigh again. We'll weigh your vehicle a second time. And so by weighing it once, weighing it twice, we get a sense of how much material was put down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then eventually, from here, again, you may need to go to another location. They may say South Cap is the dome that's open, or where you're gonna load up your brine is over in Northeast. So that's where you would go to, or Farragut, yep. And, tip off, spin, basically, unload your vehicle.
Actually, can I jump in real quick?
Please.
I just want to say, this is like sort of the distilled version of this entire training. It's probably the most important part, which is why we gave it to you twice. So this secondary sheet is also just this information, but it's referenced more plainly for you, just to reference when you need.
Alright, so we're gonna kind of go through this again a little bit. So again, my name is Blake Adams. The goal, you're gonna be notified by your route supervisor of where to be, what equipment to get, and what type of material you'll be working with, time of arrival, and whatnot. And so, once you're on site, you'll confirm with me that your vehicle is fully loaded, and then we'll weigh it together. And then we'll send you off for deployment. And then also, when you return, we'll weigh your truck, get that weight, and then allow you to go and tip off, spin off, add another salt dome. Again, it's important that all in, to me, at the starting point of the route, your odometer reading, how many miles are on your vehicle, and the start time at the beginning of the run. And then again, you would do this when you finish the route. We're going to talk about what your routes are in those areas in a second. But the important thing is that you can't just go out to your route and treat it and come back in. We need that information of start time and odometer reading. And my phone number is included in there, so you'll be able to get a hold of directly to me. And if anything happens on the route, you can contact me and say, hey, this is what's going on. So I'm here to help. I'm here to assist you all as much as you all are here to help the agency, okay? And again, afterwards, you'll return back to the Salt Dome or Farragut, I'm sorry, you'll come back here, weigh the vehicle one more time before tipping and spinning off. And again, that may not be here at the salt. There is a Salt Dome here. That may be somewhere else. Okay, any questions before we get into which routes we're touching and roles and responsibilities? Yes, sir.
I think it may be a little problem wherever y'all decide to, what Salt Dome y'all go to, because where the route at, like, especially where mine's at, if you have it at South Capitol and it's uptown, it may be a problem. So if it is at South Capitol, is it any way that it right near South Capitol can be designated for the salt area?
Well, here's the good news. Yes, that might be the case where it might be a little bit of a distance traveled. You might have to go to South Cap and then here and then back to your route and then here and then back to South Capitol. I understand that's a lot, right? Here's the good news. We're only touching the reds. And once the reds are done and you guys have done this process, you're done with your shift. So that's the pro here. Is we're asking you to do a lot of movement, touch a lot of equipment, a lot of communication, but it'll be a short shift. And I'm being candid about that because this is important. Last year when we ran the pilot, we did it once. I'm pretty sure once every driver showed up, they were home or they were gone in about 2.5 hours.
But that's not gonna happen with you
No,
all
no,
during the
no,
snow
no,
event.
let 'em talk.
So,
Let 'em
so
talk.
that's not gonna
Let
happen
'em
with
talk.
you
Go
all
ahead. Go
during the
ahead,
snow
sir.
event, okay?
I will defer to your supervisors about what happens after that, but I'm just trying to let you all know this is not a
A whole
24-hour
hour.
thing. It's really quick because again, we're only touching the reds, the primaries. We're not touching the blues, we're not touching the secondaries.
That's good.
We're only touching the reds.
Okay, that's
Yep.
good.
So now that we've got these routes pulled up, I know sometimes y'all work on the same routes. Does anyone here that works on either is familiar with HP 36 or HP 66? And there are maps in your packet if you want to take a closer look to familiarize yourself with it.
I'm a supervisor from 66.
66, okay. So both of these routes are routes that are going to receive the calcium magnesium acetate. Okay, so it's good that you're here today. These are probably the most important too. They're all important, but these are important because, again, the material we're going to be putting down is quite expensive, and we're very
It's your route,
interested in
Clyde.
how it performs.
That's
Okay,
your route, 36.
36. So you've got this sort of crisscross pattern here on Piney Branch and Blair Road. I think this is the smallest one. So you got the luck of the draw there. But again, we're working with new material and it can be somewhat unpredictable on how it performs. So again, constant communication is key. If anything happens on the route, you can get a hold of me, you can get a hold of your supervisor, say, hey, I put the material down. Something's going on with my spreader. And we need to know that type of information. Or my truck is not performing the way we want it to. And that's all useful information for us. So again, I want you guys to feel like you can get a hold of me, you can get a hold of your supervisor, during the actual treatment.
So basically,
35.
everything that you're telling us is what we do already. We just got to report it to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yep.
So,
And then again, as I mentioned, location, arrival time, that might be very different than what you typically receive on a normal activation.
yeah.
And in addition, we have a couple other steps, right? So you have to weigh your vehicle before and after.
I got a question. Who's down there?
So these are the two, I'm sorry, y'all, we're almost finished. I appreciate y'all. So these are the two rock salt routes, HP 34, HP 68. And then these are the two brine or the wetted salt, HP 35, HP 67. So if you are notified by your supervisor that you need to report at W Street by 10 a.m. on Saturday, and your route is HP 35, now you know exactly what you're going to be dealing with, what type of material, all right? So again, These are the two calcium magnesium acetate routes. You'll be using a
CMA.
typically CMA. You'll be using these rock salt trucks. The good news for y'all is that the trucks are gonna be located here at W Street, and they're gonna be fully loaded for you when you arrive. So the CMA drivers, you will most likely report directly here before going out, okay? Again, these are the two rock salt routes. Now the folks will be using regular, salt trucks. Your starting location eventually will be here, but it may be somewhere else. Again, you might be asked to load up at a different dome before coming here, okay? So the main thing is everybody's supposed to come here.
So when the regular salt, they still coming here with it?
Yes, yep, as well as brine.
You're gonna be on Brine, that's yours. That's your route.
So these two routes are gonna be on brine. And so again, depending on what the directive is for where you to get, pumped up, your vehicle, the tank to get, fueled up, the brine, that might change, but again, eventually you will report here.
Is that in here?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes
those
it is.
maps.
Yeah, it says what's brine and.
Yeah.
I just wanna make
Yes,
sure.
yep, it's in your packets is a copy of this presentation.
Okay.
Window Road,
You did.
I seen it up there, it was
So again, this is the key contact information, okay? Hang on to this, write it down, put it in your phone if you need to, okay? My name is, again, Blake Adams. I'm the main point of contact for this pilot. I will be out here with you all when we run this thing. I'll be walking you all through the steps, so you can lean on me as much as you need once you get here, okay? You can also call me when you're on the route. You can call me even if it's 30 minutes before we're about to start, or an hour, or a couple hours, you can call me. Pick up the phone, give me a call, say, hey, I'm a little bit confused. I talked with my supervisor. I'm still not quite sure about what I'm supposed to be doing. You can call me. And then in addition, you have the the shift. These are cut off here.
The phone numbers are in
Okay.
the handout.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are the correct. These are the supervisors, correct?
Yes.
For
And
shift
it-
day and
and
shift
it's in the handout though, all the
Okay.
correct information.
So don't pay attention to what's on here. It's in your packet. But again,
We here.
okay. Yep.
We here.
Yeah, I know. But with these aren't. You guys are here, but the phone numbers aren't. So again, it's important just to be mindful about each step, and if you're unsure at any point, please don't be afraid to just pick up the phone and say, hey, I just have a question. Is this exactly what I'm supposed to be doing? And that just ensures we're all on the same page. Okay? Lastly, again, we developed this training back in, really in the pandemic. Again, good guidance here to follow, but obviously the agency's updated their requirements. So with that, we're gonna do just open Q&A. Do you all have any questions for me?
Yeah. Oh, just one more.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry.
No,
Just one more.
please, go ahead.
So we call you for the start time and not the supervisor?
No, you will be notified by your supervisors as you would during a normal activity.
Okay, no, that's what I'm saying, because it kinda sounded like the call you was gonna give us the start time instead of the supervisor.
No, you'll be notified, and it sounds like it's typically by phone, is what most of y'all are saying?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll be notified by phone, by your supervisor of where you're gonna be. However, if you're en route and you're not sure where to be, or there's a problem and you can't get a hold of your supervisor, you can almost think of me as an extra resource, okay? Any other questions?
So-
I know this is quite a bit we're throwing at you.
Yeah, I got a question. So
Yes, sir.
when the snow deploys been happening, it's come. We'll be informed from our supervisor that we're to report to y'all, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we want to make sure we got
Yep.
the contact right.
So
You hear
for the
that?
most part, nothing will change except for once you arrive on site with your vehicle fully loaded. And then there's a couple extra steps.
Right.
You go out and treat the reds, you come back here, We'll weigh your vehicle before you go out, we'll weigh your vehicle when you get back in,
Mm-hmm,
we'll take down your odometer, start and end time, and then you're off. And
okay.
then you
To
guys are
finish
good to
your
go.
route
Yes,
I know.
there you go.
with
I
regular
just wanted to
salt.
make sure that you gonna contact her,
So we go home.
that's all.
Yes, sir.
Cause I know she has a better way of contacting us.
Yes, yep, and we'll be in constant communication, myself to the supervisors with
Alright.
very specific information and details for you all.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
depending on the day, the time, the type of weather, all of that information will be
Okay.
included for you.
So when they do that, they primarily, the red,
Mhm.
they just doing it once, or you gonna let us know when to tell them to come on back? to the
No,
other?
yeah, good question. So you'll be doing one pass on the reds. And so I know some of these roads are 2-lane and
Yes.
some might be 4.
Mm-hmm,
So you would basically do one pass per lane
yes.
and that's it, right? Is that typically what y'all would do?
Yeah, we go down the street and then come back, yes.
Yes. Yep. So both sides, both all lanes once. And the amount of material we're gonna be putting in your trucks is gonna be specific for
One time.
one time. Yep.
So we're not pushing the snow.
I said, are you?
Yeah.
Shovel,
There will be no
blades,
plowing.
none of that.
And actually, we won't be operating during, this is a pre-treatment event. So it's gonna be before the stuff comes down. That's the main thing.
So
Yeah.
So,
y'all
so
need some
Blake,
standbys.
Yes, sir.
the whole
I need some
36 is
standbys.
CMA.
When we go home, y'all
Yes.
take care
Okay,
of
the
it.
whole route, 36. That Blair, Piney Branch, all that.
Piney Branch and then Blair Road.
Okay,
But no, just the reds again. We're not
just the
doing,
red part,
we're not
okay.
doing this little section or the
Okay,
blues.
no, I know.
Yeah. And again, it's because these are smaller, although this one is a little bit bigger, but they're, we only have so much
Is
material.
that map in this package?
Yeah, the maps are.
I'm
All
gonna
right,
see.
Blake on it,
Yes, sir.
one of the things I wanna make sure everybody be, have a full understanding, this is gonna be a pre-treatment.
Yes. This is a pre-treatment event.
Will it be 2 days prior, 1 day prior, or during that day?
Great question. So we will typically deploy within a 12 to 24-hour period before the stuff comes down. And in some cases, it might be closer to like 6. Again, so we're going to be putting pre-treatment down. There may be an instance where you're asked to treat prior to activation on this pilot. You may be asked to treat the entire route except for the reds. So if this is your route, you might get a phone call on a Thursday that says, hey, go out, put rock salt down on the residentials and the secondaries, but don't touch the reds. That'll also be a part of that. And that's a scenario that might happen. And then we might do it again separately later on and say, all right, now we're gonna go out, we're gonna just touch the reds with the CMA. And again, it's because we only have so much of this material. So we can't do the whole route. But that guidance will be very specific.
Now, I'm confused now.
You're gonna be
So,
told.
okay,
So,
hold on,
we're gonna be-
wait 1
I
second.
kinda got
So
it.
this goes back to
Mhm.
when we call you, y'all go out and do the raids, right?
Right, correct.
When y'all finish, y'all do the weigh-in
The
and the end time and the odometer and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And you have to, they gonna tell you where to run the rest of your salt off, your
Mhm.
stuff off, whatever you got.
Man.
Then that's when you're gonna come back
That's
to
what
me.
that's why
So
I'm
then you're
confused
gonna
at.
load
That's
up
why
with
I'm
regular
confused.
salt, and then
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
continue
That's why I
on to
get
do
confused.
rest of your route,
Yeah.
but you're not gonna touch.
That's why I got confused. at.
Now, you talking about, look at the time, we talking
No.
about.
And the time, with the pre-treat, so if we come in at 12 o'clock, just say we come in at 12 o'clock,
For the whole-
PM, and we in at 12 o'clock AM, and, the pre-treat starts, you call us in maybe 8 o'clock
Mhm.
PM. So how that 24, how is that 12 going into
It
bed?
won't happen like that.
It
It
will not?
happened within the snow event.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
two main
Trying to get home.
streets.
You won't get some of that.
Yeah, what do you got going on at 8 p.m.? I don't know about that. Thank you all. That concludes this portion of the training. I really appreciate you all and your willingness to help us out. Again, my job is to make this as easy and smooth and straightforward on the day of the event as I can. If I'm unavailable, Bill Easley is my backup. So he'll be sort of the second in command here. You've got your route supervisors to lean on. And if there's any questions, they will filter that up the chain to me, okay? All right, thank you. Now we're gonna go outside.
Go outside to where the trucks are.
And we're
By
gonna
the
do,
salt.
So that you're not getting a bad weight, 'cause if it's up there, I mean, you got 500 pounds. So you zero the needle, and then every bigger mark's 100 pounds. So 500 would be in the middle, 1,000, but every larger mark is just 100, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, it's literally that simple. When you're weighing, the main thing is, and we speak from experience, sometimes, at least my guys get lazy, so they'll put them down and have a truck roll over them. Then another truck might come up and try to roll over it again, but you can't do that because you always end up running over the dial. So you kind of have to reset them every time. All right, but I mean they're fairly simple to use. We'll put them under the wheel. The only thing you want to, when he's going to get ready to drive, don't stand here. Because if that tire grabs a hold of it, it'll shoot it out if he's not gentle. So just on the drive wheel, so just stand whichever way he's going to drive. That way, if that grabs it and shoots it out the back, you don't have 40 pounds of metal hitting your legs or shin or anything like that. Up the tire, and this is the foot of the tire. As long as you see that outside rim, everything inside of that's getting weighed. Okay. And if you look in the back, you can see he's on it pretty good because you can see the other side. So there's plenty of room. You just got to make sure you set it up. You want to get it as close to the outside, as close to this bar without going over it, so you know the other tire's on.
Yeah.
So isn't that all for this one?
What's that?
Shouldn't that scale be in some more?
No, it could be, but it's on the whole thing. Because they're made for dual wheel. So it doesn't matter as long as you're anywhere in that hat.